Hello and welcome. I hope that you're all doing well. In this video, we're going to take a look at inserting data into the table that we created in the previous video. So let's go ahead and go over to the code and see how that works. So here I have my table, which is my products table, and I'm going to run some SQL code in order to insert data into this table. So I'm going to go over to SQL, and I'm going to just delete what's currently here. I'm going to type insert into, and then the table name, which is products. So we're saying we're going to insert data into the products table. And then in these brackets, I'm going to specify which columns I'm going to add data into. Now, the reason why I do this is because not every single column needs to have a value in it. A value could be there or it could not be there. So this is something that's very important about the way that columns are set up. By default, when we add a record in, it can have an attribute described by one of these columns, or it could not. So for example, I could have a product ID, but I could not have a product name. That might be an example of a value that could be missing. In these cases, what SQL will do is it will assign a special value called null to this, which will indicate that there is not a value available. So this is why we specify which columns we want to provide values for, because we don't necessarily need to provide values for all of the columns unless we've specifically set them up to need values, which we will discuss in a little bit. So when I do this, I need to say which columns I want to put in. So in this case, I want to put in a product ID, product name, and price. So I'm going to put these three columns in. And I'm going to say values, and I'm going to specify the values for each of those columns. So let's say a product ID of 1, a product name of a desktop computer, and a price of $525. Now, you might notice that both 1 and desktop computer are surrounded in single quotes. The reason for this is because they are text values. So these are values that contain text. So we have to surround them with single quotes so that SQL understands that I'm providing text data to these text columns. You'll notice that the decimal value here for price does not have the single quotes. That's because it's not text, it's an actual value. So this is something to keep in mind, is that the text needs the single quotes, but if there's no text, then we don't need the single quotes. So this is how we can insert a value. Now we can insert multiple values. We could just put a comma and declare another one. So I could say maybe product ID is 2. This is laptop computer, and maybe this costs, maybe 250.25. So you can see that we could just specify values by commas like this. So you can specify as many values as we would like inside of this statement. And this will allow us to be able to insert values into the table. So let me go ahead and press go. And you can see that it says that 2 values have been inserted. Now in MySQL, we can go ahead and click on this table, and you can see that the values have been inserted. You can see that the product IDs got set, and the product name got set, and the price got set, all based on what we provided in terms of values. So you can see that everything is consistent with what I added into that insert query. So this gives you an idea of how you can actually insert data into this table. Now I want to note as well, in this PHPMyAdmin, there is an insert button here. And you can click on this and you can actually provide values for each of these columns, press go, and it will insert those into the table for you. So you can actually do this without using any sort of SQL. However, it's important to understand the SQL way of doing things, because if you ever want to interact with this through Node, for instance, you need to know the SQL, because that's the only way to do it through these languages. So that's why I'm showing you the SQL, but I want to also demonstrate to you that this insert also does exist inside of PHPMyAdmin. So that's just something important to keep in mind as well. So that's everything that I wanted to show in this video. I just wanted to give you an idea of how to insert data. In the next video, I'm going to show you how you can actually view the data through SQL queries rather than just looking at this browse to see the data. So we'll discuss ways that we can select data from these tables in the next video.